Guys, this is the man on the street. It's another public service coming to you. But indeed, for success of continually supporting our businesses for legitimate purposes like we are for our weed dispensaries, cannabis shops. These places are now knowing that how much the cost of weed has gone down. So average cannabis user knows exactly the cost it was before and after they legalized weed. As we said, there are properties in marijuana that are medicinal, right? I don't have to call Snoop Dogg and say, how'd you get your pass to buy your cannabis, right? Smoke an ounce to bounce, right? So in this case, this is what we adopted in every province. This is why we took out the middleman, which back in their proportionate amount of value, hydroponics, sensimilia, different types of marijuana was grown differently. But hydroponics fetched a good price, $45 to $55, maybe $70 for a good hydroponic type of weed. And at this time, you would have to acquire it illegally. It's on an HBO show, right, about your courier coming to your house. But we understood if we open up legally these businesses, how could it help the majority? So we did. And this time we knew, however, those neglective needs of those drug dispensing couriers would use that, for example, in other means that they said now their business would dry up. But as you know, there are much more criteria dealing with narcotics, my friends. Narcotics has always been playing tricky dick in Nixon and his administration when he declared a war. And at that time, I was just a toddler. I didn't know marijuana from peyote. But at this time, how we use our education to enroll. So these profits that are notarized, the accountants in here, and all those businesses, in good times and bad, you're accountable. So that way we can use that argument, so that way the tax shelter system helps those industries to put it back into our education system. Our education system would show that the particulates of what marijuana and other type of narcotics in children can be displaced when they are arguing the same dynamics when you're going from home to home and class to class. So this way, just like we taught about 911 services, just like we talk about police services, these are all educational tools that I was blessed with in this country. But that's more than 4 decades ago, and we all have to grow up. And we like to think that in most settings we do. But if I was a Jays were in here, and I was wearing this hat, and I said sarcastically, who do you think is going to win? We don't have to ask how many championships they won or not, but at the same time, if I wear this hat, people have to respect the dignity behind it. Just like if you're wearing a hijab or a turban. But we can argument that how it becomes statutory when you ask that for the Supreme Court to talk about people's safety if you're wearing a turban and if you're not, and what kind of injuries you can have going on a motorcycle. Let alone if you just trip and fall on the concrete right here, it'll just do a cranial impact just as much. But this was a notation that people would use to for their rights. But when you're talking about safety and the safety mechanism involved about taking advantage of some people in the industry that it is. So hopefully going forward when they're talking about legitimizing everything else, well, in Vancouver and certain areas in Hastings, in other part of Seattle and almost every part of any major metropolis city, they have these same dynamics where you instigate those criterias and see how it evolves. Now, when you're talking about simple possession and trafficking, sometimes people might need help and sometimes they might not. But it is difficult substances when you're talking about heroin and cocaine. But it's just as attainable that if you're trying to quit cigarettes, it's just as the same contingency that you might use as a tool to use. Some people go cold turkey. Some people go to AA. But again, those resources are always available. Now, when you talk about other people's dynamics and who you're helping, including the mental health facilities For example, when you lost your, mind, and once say one flew over the cuckoo's nest, right? And that's kind of disparaging because, real people suffer, but there are people right now, at this very minute, at this very second, taking advantage of that fact. But we can say in good times how Hollywood industry, the actor and the writers guild have discompartmented those people to take advantage of. But I'm here to tell you that's going to stop. As much as they try to produce the next film, there's some crossroads and inlays that they must address. But getting back to the idea, how that infractures in that industry is paramount. Back in the day, they would say what their procurement would be, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll. As long as you play by the rules and you abide by them. And if you can't play football, you know what they say, get off the field. This is the man on the street.